The deep blue expanse of space stretched on forever as Daniel and his team drifted towards the unknown. The mission was simple: explore, document, and return. But as the alien planet loomed into view, something felt wrong. It wasn't the planet itself. No, it was the eerie silence, the unnerving stillness in the air. They had been briefed on the possibility of alien life, but nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to encounter. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He had always believed that humanity's greatest achievement would come through discovery, uncovering the vastness of space, exploring uncharted worlds. But now, as he stood at the command deck staring at the surface of this strange planet, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't the first to arrive. The ship's systems hummed, and the artificial gravity held steady as he looked over the monitors. His team, a group of seasoned astronauts, all stared at the planet in awe. There was something ancient about it, something that felt familiar and foreign at the same time. "We're approaching the landing site," said Commander Lisa Gray, her voice calm but laced with a hint of excitement. Her eyes never left the screen, focused on their destination. "Are we sure about this?" Daniel asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Look at the readings. This place is rich with resources." "There's something here, Daniel," she replied, glancing at him with a smile, trying to reassure him. But Daniel couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his gut. The ship descended toward the surface, and the rocky terrain became clearer with each passing moment. It looked like any other uninhabited planet, filled with jagged mountains and barren plains. But then something caught Daniel's eye. A structure, half hidden beneath a ridge of stone, its outlines faintly visible through the atmospheric. "Hayes! Hold on!" Daniel said sharply, his eyes narrowing. "What's that?" The team gathered around the observation table, eyes scanning the display. A few moments passed in tense silence as they all absorbed the data. "That's not natural," said one of the crew members, Lieutenant Carter, pointing at the structure. "That looks engineered." The ship slowed as it approached the structure. It was massive, a sprawling complex of smooth, geometrically perfect shapes, unlike anything they had seen before. It was almost as if the building had been designed for something other than humans. "Prepare for landing," Lisa ordered, her voice steady. The ship descended, the control systems perfectly compensating for the uneven terrain. The ground beneath them vibrated as the landing gear made contact. The door opened, and the crew stepped out into the cold alien air. Daniel's boots crunched on the dusty ground as he stepped forward. The air was thick, almost breathable, but it was the strange metallic scent that filled his lungs that unsettled him. His eyes scanned the horizon, but it was the structure ahead of them that caught his attention. They had to investigate it. There was no turning back now. As they approached the entrance of the alien complex, the silence was deafening. No animals, no wind, no sound, just the eerie hum of the ship's systems and their own footsteps. It felt as though the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Stay close," Lisa said, her voice low but commanding. They moved cautiously, scanning the surroundings for any signs of movement. Suddenly, there was a sound, a whisper, barely audible like the rustling of fabric in the wind. Daniel's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, but he quickly realized that the sound was not coming from any of the crew. Ahead of them, from the shadows of the structure, figures emerged, not humans, but something else. Their bodies were tall and slender, their skin a shade of pale blue that shimmered under the planet's dim light. They moved with an unsettling grace, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. There were 5 of them, all women, all alien. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. They had found them, the aliens, but these weren't the monstrous creatures he had read about in the briefings. No, these beings were elegant, almost beautiful in their own right, but there was an undeniable tension in the air, a sense of danger. The leader of the group stepped forward, her eyes locking onto Daniel's. Her gaze was intense, almost piercing. She tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. For a moment there was no sound. The other crew members stood frozen, unsure of what to do. But Daniel, despite the fear creeping up his spine, stepped forward. "I'm Daniel," he said, his voice steady, but his mind racing. "We come in peace." The alien leader's eyes flickered with something. Was it recognition? The barest hint of shock crossed her face, and for a moment Daniel thought she might speak. But instead, she raised a hand, and the other aliens stepped back, forming a protective circle around her. "Stay back," she said, her voice low and melodic, but there was a warning in it. Daniel froze. There was something in her eyes, something that made him feel like he was no longer in control of the situation. This wasn't just a meeting between two species, it was something far more complicated. The air around them grew thicker, and the temperature dropped suddenly. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as the alien leader stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Daniel's mind raced. He wasn't sure how to answer. They had come to explore, to document, to make contact, but the way she looked at him, with such intensity, such fear, made him feel like their arrival was far from accidental. I don't know," Daniel replied honestly. "We're explorers. We didn't expect this." The alien leader's eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, Daniel saw something that chilled him to the core. Recognition. She knew something he didn't. But before he could ask, she did something that left him stunned. With a sudden motion, she reached out and touched his arm. The contact was electric, sending a jolt of energy through Daniel's body. His vision blurred for a moment, and he staggered back, his heart racing. The alien leader's face shifted, her expression suddenly filled with fear. She stepped away, and from him her eyes wide with horror. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Before Daniel could respond, she turned and fled into the shadows, disappearing into the depths of the structure. "Wait!" Daniel shouted, but it was too late. The crew stood there, speechless, as the silence returned even heavier than before. Something had happened, something that had terrified the alien leader. "What the hell just happened?" Lieutenant Carter asked, her voice trembling. Daniel's mind raced, but one thing was clear. They were not alone on this planet, and whatever had just transpired, it wasn't what they expected. He looked back at the structure, wondering what secrets it held. But now he knew one thing for sure. They had just stepped into a much darker mystery than they had ever anticipated, and they were about to uncover the truth, a truth that would change everything. Daniel stood in the cold air, staring at the spot where the alien leader had vanished. The crew was still frozen, unsure of what to do next. The eerie silence of the alien world seemed to press down on them, as if the very planet was watching their every move. "What just happened?" Lieutenant Carter asked, her voice shaking. "Did she recognize you?" Daniel didn't answer right. Away. He didn't know what to say. He had felt that strange jolt when the alien leader had touched him. But what did it mean? Her reaction, that fear in her eyes, haunted him. Commander Lisa Gray, always the calm one, stepped forward, her face a mask of determination. "We need to find out more. This isn't just a simple alien encounter. Something is going on here, and we need to understand it." The crew nodded in agreement. They had no choice but to follow their mission to its uncertain end. With the alien leader's sudden departure, it was clear that there was more to this planet, and to humanity's connection to it, than they could have imagined. "Let's move out," Lisa ordered. "We need to find shelter and regroup. We'll continue the investigation tomorrow." The crew made their way back to the ship, their minds swirling with questions. They had come here expecting to discover alien life, but instead they had uncovered something far more unsettling. Later that night, as the crew sat around a small table inside the ship, The conversation turned to what they had seen. Daniel sat, quietly, his mind racing. What had the alien leader meant when she had whispered, "It can't be," and why had she reacted with such fear when she touched him? "Daniel," Lisa said, breaking him from his thoughts, "you've been quiet. What do you think happened out there?" He looked up, meeting her gaze. "I don't know. But something's not right, that alien leader. She recognized me. There's no other explanation. Her reaction was pure fear." "Fear of what, though?" Carter asked, leaning forward. "We've never seen any alien life that has reacted that way before. It's almost like she knew who you were." Daniel's mind flickered back to the strange artifact they had found earlier, the one that had shown a human figure, eerily similar to him, but from the alien archives. What if there was a connection between him and these aliens that went back further than they had realized? "We need to go back to the structure," Daniel said suddenly, his voice firm. "There's something there, something they don't want us to find. We need to understand what happened, why she reacted the way she did." Lisa hesitated, but then nodded. "I agree. We can't ignore this. We'll go back at first light. But we have to be careful. If these aliens are as afraid of us as they seem, we might be walking into something much bigger than we think." The crew settled in for the night, but sleep didn't come easily to Daniel. His mind kept replaying the moment when the alien leader had touched him. There was something about it, a connection, an unspoken understanding that he couldn't explain. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that he wasn't just some explorer in the midst of a groundbreaking discovery. No, he was part of something much larger, something ancient and terrifying. The next morning, they set out again, their faces grim as they made their way back to the alien structure. The landscape seemed even more desolate in the light of day, and the air felt heavier, as if the planet itself was warning them to turn back. But they pressed on. As they neared the entrance to the structure, Daniel couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. He had always believed that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to explore, to discover the unknown. But now, as they stood before this alien architecture, he felt like they were trespassing in a place that wasn't meant to be found. They entered the complex cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The walls were smooth and metallic, covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer as they moved past them. It was a place of unimaginable age, and yet it seemed almost untouched by time. "This place is alive," Carter muttered under her breath, her voice filled with awe and fear. "It's like it's watching us." Daniel nodded, his senses heightened. He felt it too, a strange energy in the air, as if the structure itself was aware of their presence. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the feeling became. At the heart of the complex, they found a large chamber, its ceiling high above them, supported by towering columns. In the center of the room was a raised platform, surrounded by glowing symbols and strange devices that hummed with a quiet energy. It was clear that this was the heart of the structure, and possibly the key to unlocking its secrets. Daniel approached the platform, his heart pounding. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was where everything would change. "Stay alert," Lisa warned, her eyes scanning the surroundings. This could be a trap. But Daniel wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on the symbols carved into the platform, symbols that looked remarkably similar to the ones he had seen in the alien archives. The same ones that had shown an image of a human, an image that had looked too much like him. He reached out, his fingers grazing the surface of the platform. The moment he touched it, a jolt of energy surged through him, just like when the alien leader had touched him. His vision blurred for a moment, and a flood of images, alien landscapes, battles, human figures, flashed in his mind. He staggered back, his breath coming in shallow gasps. His mind was reeling, struggling to process what he had just experienced. He felt dizzy, disoriented, as though the very fabric of reality had been torn apart and reshaped in an instant. "Daniel!" Lisa's voice broke through the haze. "What happened?" "I saw something," he said, his voice trembling. "I saw history, the history of these people, of humanity. It's all connected." "Connected how?" Carter asked, her voice urgent. "The humans," Daniel said, his eyes wide with realization. "We were here before. We were part of this story. This isn't just a random encounter. This is something much older. The aliens. They're afraid of us because of what we did, what we became." Lisa's face was filled with confusion. "What do you mean? What did we become?" Before Daniel could answer, the alien leader appeared again, stepping out from the shadows. Her eyes were wide with fear, but this time there was something else in them. Something like recognition, like she had been expecting this moment. She stepped forward slowly, her voice trembling. You're not supposed to be here," she said softly. "None of you are. You were lost to us long ago, and now you've come back." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean? What happened to the humans?" The alien leader took a deep breath, and then, for the first time, she spoke the truth. The humans who came here, they weren't explorers. They were invaders. Daniel stood frozen, his mind racing as the alien leader's words echoed in his ears. The humans who came here, they weren't explorers. They were invaders. His heart skipped a beat. The truth that the alien leader had just spoken shattered everything he had ever known about humanity's place in the universe. They weren't explorers. They were invaders. The revelation hit him like a tidal wave, leaving him breathless and stunned. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. For a moment, there was only the eerie silence of the alien structure, broken only by the distant hum of unknown machines. The rest of the crew stood in stunned silence, too afraid to speak, too uncertain about what was unfolding before them. The alien leader, her tall, slender form still standing before them, looked at Daniel with a mixture of fear and something else, something deeper, more unsettling. Recognition. "We didn't want to believe it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper filled with sorrow. "But you are here again. You humans. You were lost to us long ago, but we never forgot." Daniel's mind reeled. His eyes searched her face, trying to decipher the meaning of her words. What did she mean by lost? Why had humanity been forgotten by these beings? And why did she seem to recognize him? "Who are you?" Daniel finally managed to ask, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "What happened to the humans?" The alien leader took a deep breath, as if gathering strength before revealing something that had been hidden for centuries. She glanced at her companions, the other alien females, who stood at the edges of the room, watching with guarded expressions. Then, with a gesture, she beckoned Daniel and the crew to follow her. "We cannot speak freely here," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Come with me." Without waiting for a response, she turned and led them through the dark corridors of the alien structure. The crew followed her in silence, their minds filled with questions that had no answers. Daniel's heart raced with anticipation and fear, knowing that whatever truths were waiting to be revealed would change everything. They reached a smaller, more private chamber, its walls lined with ancient alien symbols and intricate carvings. The air was thick with an ancient energy that seemed to hum beneath the surface. The alien leader turned to face them, her eyes filled with a deep, unspoken sorrow. "You must understand," she began. "The humans who first arrived on this planet were not like you. They were not peaceful explorers. They came here with a single purpose: to conquer." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. Conquer? How could this be? Everything he had been taught, everything he had believed about humanity's exploration of space, seemed like a lie now. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We're not conquerors. We've only come to explore, to learn." The alien leader shook her head, her face filled with regret. "That is what we once thought too, but we learned the truth far too late." She stepped toward a large, glowing device embedded in the floor, its surface covered in shifting symbols. The device hummed with energy, and as she placed her hand on it, the symbols began to glow brightly. A holographic display flickered to life above the device, revealing images of another time. Images of a long-forgotten war. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he watched the images unfold. He saw a human ship, sleek and advanced, descending onto the planet. But the scene quickly turned violent. Alien ships appeared from the depths of space, attacking the human ship with deadly precision. There was a battle in the sky, and then the humans began to land on the planet's surface. Humans were not just explorers, the alien leader said softly. They were warriors. They came here seeking to conquer our world, to take it for themselves. Daniel felt his chest tighten as he watched the holographic images of the brutal conflict. The humans, despite their advanced technology, were overwhelmed by the alien forces. He had always believed that humanity's strength lay in its ability to cooperate, to come together in the face of adversity. But these humans were different. They were invaders, ruthless, and determined to claim the planet for themselves. "And what happened after that?" Carter asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Did they win?" The alien leader's face darkened. "No, the humans were defeated, but the cost was immense. The war devastated both our worlds. We were forced to flee, to leave behind everything we had built, and we swore never to return. But," Daniel began, struggling to find the right words, "if you were defeated, how did you survive? Why are you still here?" "We fled into the stars," the alien leader replied. "We retreated to a place where no one could follow us. We sealed our world off, hiding it from the rest of the universe. We erased all traces of humanity's existence here, even from our own memories." The revelation struck Daniel like a thunderclap. These aliens, these beings who had been so distant and mysterious, had been hiding from humanity for centuries. And now, somehow, they were back. But why? "We erased everything," she continued, "every trace of humanity's existence here, until you arrived." "Why were we forgotten?" Daniel asked, his voice rising with frustration. "Why did you erase us from your history? We've never even known about you. How could you just erase us?" The alien leader's eyes softened, filled with sorrow. "We did it to protect ourselves. We believed that if we erased your memory from our history, you would never come looking for us again. But now you've found us." Daniel's mind raced as the weight of her words sank in. They hadn't come here by accident. They hadn't just discovered an uninhabited world. They had stumbled upon something ancient, something forgotten, and now they were caught in a cycle that was beyond their control. "What do you want from us?" Daniel asked, his voice hoarse with the weight of the situation. "We came here to explore, not to invade." The alien leader shook her head slowly. "I don't know what you want, but I know what we need." Daniel frowned, confused. "What do you need?" "We need to stop it from happening again," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We need to stop you from making the same mistakes that your ancestors made." The room was silent for a long moment. Daniel's mind raced as he tried to process everything. They weren't just here to make contact with an alien species. They were here to prevent something far worse from happening. The fear, the dread that the alien leader had felt when she touched him was no longer just about him. It was about humanity's potential to repeat the same mistakes. "What do we have to do?" Carter asked, her voice steady but filled with concern. The alien leader turned to face them, her eyes locked on Daniel's. "You must help us find the truth. We need to know why humanity is here, why you've returned to this world, and we..." Need to stop the cycle before it begins again. Daniel looked around at his crew, their faces filled with uncertainty and fear. But there was no turning back now. They had already crossed a line, and there was no going back. Whatever was waiting for them on this alien world, whatever secrets were hidden beneath its surface, they had to uncover them. The truth was out there, and it was waiting for them. The alien leader, whose name Daniel still did not know, led them deeper into the heart of the complex. The air seemed even thicker here, pulsating with an ancient energy that felt alien yet strangely familiar. The crew had been through a lot in the past few hours, and the weight of the revelations they had uncovered pressed down on them. But one question gnawed at Daniel. Why were they so determined to keep humans from knowing the truth? As they moved through the winding corridors, the alien leader's footsteps echoed, almost rhythmic, as if she were counting the seconds. She didn't turn back to speak to them, but there was a sense of urgency in her gait. She knew something, and Daniel was certain that whatever it was far more dangerous than they had initially thought. Finally, they reached a large chamber. The walls were smooth and black, with faint, glowing symbols that pulsed gently. In the center of the room was an enormous, dormant structure, an object, or perhaps a machine, that seemed to hum with life, though there was no visible movement. It stood taller than any of the crew, a tower of alien technology. "What is this?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with awe. The entire structure looked ancient, yet its design was beyond anything he had ever seen, more advanced than anything. On Earth, the alien leader stepped toward the tower, placing her hand on the cold, smooth surface. "This," she said, her voice tense, "is the artifact that humanity has been searching for." The words hit Daniel like a slap in the face. He had heard rumors back on Earth about a lost alien artifact, something that had been the subject of speculation for decades, but no one had ever been able to prove its existence. Some said it was a weapon of unimaginable power. Others said it was a key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. "Why do you have it?" Carter asked, stepping forward. Her tone was sharp, demanding answers. "It was the only thing that could save us," the alien leader replied. She turned to face them, her eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and determination. The humans who came here, the invaders, they sought it for their own purposes. They were not just interested in conquering our world. They wanted this. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The artifact, it wasn't just a relic. It was something more, something alive. A weapon, perhaps? Or something else entirely? His mind raced with the possibilities. He had seen the images of the humans from the ancient records, warriors, conquerors. If they had discovered this artifact, it could explain why they had attacked the alien world with such ferocity. They sought it, but they couldn't control it, the alien leader continued. None of them could. That's why they were defeated. This artifact is far more than a tool of war. It is something else. It is alive. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Alive? What did she mean by that? This artifact, the alien leader continued, her voice trembling slightly, has the power to manipulate space and time. It can change the fabric of reality itself. But it is not something that can be controlled. It reacts to the thoughts, the desires of those who seek it, and it chooses its bearer. Daniel's mind spun as he tried to process the gravity of what she was saying. The humans who had come here before, the ones who had tried to conquer this world, had failed because they had underestimated the artifact. They had sought power, but the artifact had rejected them. And now they were caught in a race against time to prevent something catastrophic from happening. And now we're here, Daniel said, his voice rising with the weight of it all. What are we supposed to do with this thing? The alien leader turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and sadness. That is the question. Humanity has returned to this world, and this time we cannot afford to fail. If the artifact chooses wrong again, the consequences will be far worse than what happened before. There was a moment of silence, broken only by the low hum of the artifact. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle heavily on him. There was no going back now. Whatever was happening, whatever had brought them here, was far beyond their understanding. Before he could speak again, the chamber suddenly shook, the ground beneath them vibrating violently. The lights flickered, and a deep, resonant sound echoed through the walls, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Daniel stumbled, his heart racing in his chest. The hum of the artifact grew louder, vibrating in his very bones. "What's happening?" Carter shouted, clutching at a nearby pillar to steady herself. The alien leader's face was filled with terror. "No, it's happening too soon. They've found us." "Who?" Daniel asked, his mind struggling to catch up with the unfolding events. "Who's found us?" But before the alien leader could answer, the chamber doors slammed shut with a deafening bang. They were trapped. The ground continued to shake and the hum of the artifact grew louder still. Daniel's heart raced as he glanced around at his crew. They were all visibly shaken, but none of them had any idea what was happening. None of them knew what they were up against. "The invaders," the alien leader whispered, her voice filled with dread. "They've returned." A cold chill ran down Daniel's spine. The human invaders, but how could that be? The ship that had brought them here had left Earth months ago. There was no way that another human force could have reached this far in such a short time, unless... His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp crackling sound, followed by a low mechanical hum. The walls of the chamber seemed to shift, warping and distorting, as if reality itself were bending. And then a figure appeared before them, tall, humanoid, but not human. It was an alien, but not like the ones they had encountered before. This being had the same slender, pale blue skin, but it was different. Its eyes glowed a bright, unnatural green, and its body seemed to flicker in and out of existence, like a hologram struggling to stay stable. "I am the Herald," the figure said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "I come with a message from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The time of humanity's reckoning has come." The alien leader stepped forward, her eyes wide with terror. "No, you cannot be here. You cannot." "I am," the Herald said, its voice colder now. "And your planet will not survive what is coming. Humanity must be eradicated, or we will all be destroyed." The alien leader's face twisted in anguish. "We cannot do this again. We cannot let the cycle repeat." But the Herald merely stood there, unmoving. "It has already begun." The Herald's chilling words hung in the air like a death sentence. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. Humanity's reckoning? What did that mean? The creature in front of him flickered again, its form wavering like a ghost, trapped between dimensions, its glowing eyes fixed on the alien leader. And for a moment, Daniel swore he saw a flicker of recognition in its expression. "We cannot allow it to happen again," the Herald intoned, its voice a strange mix of finality and desperation. "Humanity has always been a threat, and now, with the artifact, the cycle must be broken." "Humanity is not a threat," Daniel shot back, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. "We've only come to explore, to learn. We're not invaders. Not anymore." The Herald's glowing eyes narrowed, and for the first time it seemed to look directly at Daniel. "You think your intentions matter. Your kind has always been destructive. You spread like a disease across the stars, leaving destruction in your wake. You cannot escape your true nature." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. This alien, this Herald, clearly saw humanity in a light that he could never have imagined. The very notion that they were considered a plague by some of the galaxy's inhabitants sent a cold shiver through him. But there was something else here, something deeper. The alien leader, standing next to Daniel, turned to face the herald with a mixture of fear and determination. "You are wrong," she said, her voice steady but filled with sorrow. "We tried to erase the past. We tried to forget what humanity was. But it is not the humans who are the problem. It is the cycle, the pattern of destruction that repeats itself." The herald's eyes flickered as though it were processing her words. Then it spoke again, this time with a tone that was almost regretful. "The cycle cannot be broken. It is inevitable. Humanity's desire for power, for control, is what brings destruction. You have come back to finish what was started long ago, and once the artifact is awakened, there will be no stopping the chain of events." Daniel's mind spun. The artifact, the key to this entire mystery, the thing that had drawn them here. It was more than just an object of power. It was the fulcrum around which this whole conflict revolved. "What are you talking about?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with frustration. "What's so special about the artifact? Why does it control the fate of humanity?" The herald didn't respond directly, but instead it raised its hand. The air around them shimmered, and the room seemed to warp. A holographic image flickered into existence in front of them, a map of the galaxy, with lines and patterns that Daniel couldn't quite understand. The image shifted, zooming in on their planet, and then expanding outward to reveal countless other worlds. "This," the herald said, gesturing toward the map, "is the key to understanding the cycle. The artifact you have found is not just a weapon, it is a catalyst. It amplifies the latent desire for power in every civilization that comes into contact with it." Daniel stared at the map, his eyes widening as he took in the vast expanse of the galaxy. The artifact was part of something much bigger, something that spanned the stars, and humanity, it seemed, was at the center of it all. "You see," the herald continued, "every species that has encountered the artifact has followed the same path. They begin with noble intentions, exploration, knowledge, survival, but eventually the artifact awakens something in them, a thirst for power, control, and once they have tasted that power, they cannot stop themselves from seeking more." Daniel's mind raced. The cycle. This was what the alien leader had been talking about. The artifact wasn't just a tool, it was a temptation, a force that manipulated civilizations into repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And now it seemed that humanity was on the verge of falling into that same trap. "But why?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would the artifact do that? Why would it make people want to destroy everything?" The herald's eyes flashed, and for a brief moment it seemed as though it was struggling with something. Then in a voice that was both resigned and furious, it spoke. "It is not the artifact that is to blame. It is the nature of the universe itself. The artifact amplifies the deepest desires of those who find it. It reveals their true selves, their hunger for power. And when that happens, the cycle begins. Destruction follows. And then new civilizations rise, unaware of the pattern, until they too fall victim to the same curse." Daniel's heart sank. This was bigger than any one person, any one planet. This was a cosmic cycle, a force that no one could escape. But was there really no way to break it? Was humanity doomed to repeat the same mistakes that had brought the aliens to their knees all those years ago? "I won't let it happen," the alien leader said firmly, her eyes fixed on the herald. "We can stop it. We can change the cycle." The herald's expression softened, though its eyes still glowed with a cold, otherworldly light. "You believe that you can change fate? That you can undo what has been set into motion? You are as naive as the others before you." Daniel felt the weight of the words settle on his chest. Naive. He had thought they were different. He had hoped that humanity could prove itself, that they could rise above the mistakes of the past. But now, faced with the impossible odds and the weight of the universe's judgment, doubt began to creep into his mind. "Then what do we do?" Carter asked, her voice tight with frustration. "Do we just give up? Do we let this happen again?" The Herald didn't answer right away. Instead, it looked at the alien leader, and for the first time, there was something like pity in its expression. "You cannot stop the cycle," the Herald said softly, "but you can choose how it ends." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Daniel stared at the creature, his heart pounding. What did that mean? Choose how it ends? Before he could ask, the ground beneath them began to shake again, this time with more force. The walls of the chamber groaned, and the air grew thick with a strange energy. The artifact began to hum louder, its power growing, feeding off the tension in the room. "The artifact is awakening," the alien leader whispered. "It's reacting to the conflict. We have to act now, before it's too late." Daniel's mind raced. He could feel it too, the pull, the energy, the temptation. The artifact wasn't just a passive object, it was alive. And it was calling to them. Without thinking, Daniel reached out toward the artifact, his hand trembling. The air around him crackled with power, and as his fingers brushed the surface of the artifact, a surge of energy coursed through him. For a moment, his vision blurred and he saw flashes, alien landscapes, battles, and something else, a future he couldn't quite understand. The energy was overwhelming. Daniel staggered back, gasping for air as his mind struggled to process what he had just experienced. The alien leader's voice broke through the haze. "You've touched it. You've awakened it." Daniel turned to her, his face pale. "What does it want from us?" "It doesn't want anything," she replied, her voice tight with fear. "It is a force, an extension of the universe's nature, but we can't control it. No one can." Daniel looked back at the artifact, its power, now coursing through the room. He realized in that moment that there was no easy way out. They were caught in the cycle, just like every civilization before them. But maybe, just maybe, they could choose how it ended. The artifact hummed louder now, the room vibrating as though it was a living, breathing entity, pulsating with ancient energy. The air was thick with tension. Daniel felt the weight of its power pressing down on him, a constant, unbearable pressure. The alien leader stood at his side, her eyes wide with fear, but there was something else there now, something new. It was determination. "We can't wait any longer," she said, her voice strained, her breath shallow from the overwhelming energy in the room. "It's reacting to our presence. If we don't act now, we won't be able to stop it." Daniel turned to face her, his mind racing. He had felt the artifact's power, its potential, and the way it had almost consumed him. He knew that this was the moment, the defining moment for humanity and the alien species. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about choices, choices that would shape the future of their worlds. He took a deep breath. "We need to make sure it doesn't choose for us." The alien leader nodded solemnly, understanding exactly what he meant. The artifact, the thing that had drawn them here, wasn't just an object of power. It was a force of nature, one that amplified the deepest desires of those who sought it, and it was capable of more than just destruction. It could create, it could shape reality, but only if one could control it, or, as they had seen, if it controlled them. "We need to destroy it," Daniel said firmly. The words felt heavy on his tongue, but they were necessary. There was no other way. The alien leader's face darkened with concern. "You don't understand. Destroying it, it could cause a collapse. The fabric of reality itself is tied to this artifact. If we destroy it, we may not survive the consequences. It could unravel everything." Daniel swallowed hard. He had known it wouldn't be easy, but hearing it out loud made the stakes clearer than ever. The very fabric of their universe was intertwined with the artifact, and if they destroyed it, there was no telling what could happen. It could tear apart the laws of reality, but the alternative, letting it remain, was equally terrifying. If left unchecked, it would continue to warp the desires of every civilization that came into contact with it, setting off a chain of events that would never end. There was no right answer. But one truth remained clear. They had to make a choice. Before Daniel could speak again, the herald, who had been silent for some time, stepped forward. Its form flickered, the green light in its eyes dimming slightly. "You don't have to destroy it," it said, its voice softer now, almost regretful. "You only have to control it." Daniel looked at the herald with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "Control it? You want us to be just like the others, to bend to its will?" "No," the herald responded, its voice distant. "You misunderstand. You don't control it through force. You control it by understanding it. The artifact is a mirror. It reflects the deepest, most honest parts of the beings who encounter it. It reveals what they truly desire. The key is not to fight it, but to understand the desires it brings to the surface and to choose consciously to rise above them." The room grew colder, and Daniel felt the weight of the herald's words settle over him. Could it really be that simple? Could the key to ending the cycle be something as intangible as understanding? The herald's words were not just a call to action, they were a challenge to humanity, to do what it had never truly done before, to face its own darkness and rise above it. The alien leader watched Daniel intently, as if waiting for him to understand. The artifact doesn't force people to destroy. It gives them a choice, a chance to confront their deepest impulses and to rise above them. To break the cycle, you must choose to reject the desire for power, for control. It is only through rejecting that temptation that you will be able to wield the artifact's power without falling victim to its destructive nature. Daniel's mind reeled. Was it really that simple? Reject the temptation of power? That sounded almost too easy. But in that moment, he understood what the alien leader was trying to convey. It wasn't just the artifact that had to be controlled. It was humanity's very nature, the desire for power, control, and dominance that had led to the destruction of so many civilizations before them. "You don't have to destroy the artifact," she said again, her voice steady. "You just have to reject the darkness within yourself." Daniel stood there for what felt like an eternity, weighing the options before him. His mind flashed to Earth, to the countless wars, the hunger for power, the suffering caused by those who sought control at the expense of others. Was this humanity's true nature? Was this all they were destined to be? He didn't believe that. He couldn't. Humanity was capable of more. They had to be. "I'm not going to let humanity become what it was before," Daniel said, his voice filled with conviction. "We can do better. We can break the cycle." The alien leader nodded, her eyes filled with quiet admiration. "Then we must work together. The artifact will respond to your choices, but you must act with clarity, with purpose." Daniel turned to the artifact, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision he was about to make. He stepped forward, his fingers brushing against its surface once again. The energy surged through him, stronger than before, but this time it felt different. This time he wasn't fighting it. He was accepting it, accepting the power it offered, not to control, but to understand. The room grew still, the hum of the artifact fading into silence. Daniel's mind seemed to expand, and for a brief moment he saw the universe as it truly was. Not a series of conflicts, not a battlefield where the strong crushed the weak, but a delicate web of choices, a fragile balance between creation and destruction. He saw humanity not as conquerors, but as something else. He saw them reaching out, not to destroy, but to build, to connect, to understand. And for the first time, he saw a future where the cycle didn't repeat, where humanity's desire for power didn't lead to ruin. Daniel closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and made his choice. "I choose to rise above," he said quietly, his voice filled with a sense of finality. "I choose to reject the cycle of destruction." The artifact hummed one last time, then fell silent. The room seemed to breathe with him, as though the very universe was exhaling a collective sigh of relief. The energy in the room shifted, no longer heavy and oppressive, but light and hopeful. The herald, still standing at the edge of the room, nodded. "You have chosen wisely, and in doing so, you have broken the cycle." The alien leader stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "You have saved us all." Daniel turned to face her, a small but genuine smile, tugging at the corner of his mouth. "No. We've saved each other." The tension in the room began to dissipate, and the oppressive weight that had once filled the space seemed to lift. The artifact, no longer a tool of destruction, now seemed to pulse with a quiet, benevolent energy. It had been a mirror, showing them not just their deepest desires, but their potential for growth. "We can start again," Daniel said, his voice filled with hope. "We can rebuild together." As the crew stood there, the alien leader by their side, Daniel knew that the battle wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome. But they had made the first step. They had broken the cycle, not through force or destruction, but through understanding and choice. And that, in the end, was the greatest power of all, the end.